Hello and welcome back. As always, I am Befallen Tragedy. I'm joined by my gracious co-host, Lightning the Second.
Hey there.
And today we have a very special guest with us. Special guest, who are you?
Hello, my name is Isseus and I'm a writer from Finland. I'm a brony and, well, I've been writing fanfics for about a half a year now.
All right. And what story are we talking about that you wrote?
Well, I hear that I wrote well, let's call it what it is. It's a clubfic called Dominant Ideal. It's my third fanfic that I published on the FimFiction site.
So yes, this is a clot fic. If you didn't listen to the warning before this, then shame on you. If you don't like clot fics, you can leave now because we're gonna be talking about it. All right. So your story, Dominant Ideal. How did you come up with the idea for it? Like, what was the inspiration?
Oh, you just go for the most difficult question at first. So actually, it all started when I read another fiction. It was written by what was it? Chuck Finley, which was a BDSM fiction about Rarity and Twilight, and that got me thinking that well, it was a good one, but I thought that I could write something more expansive, and go more for the emotional side of the story. So. That's why I decided to try my hand at clubfic, and actually I've never written a clubfic before, and I've been meaning to try to write one, so it was an experiment in that too.
Yeah, for most writers, I know it's a very tumultuous step for writing plot fics. I still don't have the heart to do it myself. So
Well, to be honest, I actually thought for the longest time if I was actually going to post it on my real pen name Isseus, or actually should I make another account and post it there. And I even had to write a blog post asking my readers that hey, is it cool if I write this? I mean, I'm not really sure about this. They just responded, do whatever, we'll read it anyway, so I'm happy.
all right, now the title Dominant Ideal. Where did you get that from?
Actually, that's a silly one because, well, the dominant ideal is really linked to the story itself quite naturally, but it's one of the carrying themes around the fiction. But the name itself came from a Dungeons and Dragons class ability that just rolled into my mind, and I wrote it up.
Nice, nice. Not like a good old D&D reference.
Yeah, well, I've been a avid role player for the last 15 years, so that's one of the ways that I've been practicing storytelling and inventing and writing. So that's kind of my background to writing fan fiction in the first place.
Now the chapter titles they make up a little poem once you have all of them complete. Did you get that poem from somewhere and just poemify it, or did you come up with it by yourself?
Actually, it's from Terry Pratchett.
Oh, okay.
If you, yeah, he once wrote that listening to children play outside is the most wonderful thing an adult can do until you go close and actually listen to what they're saying.
All right. Well, that makes sense, especially from your story.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
that was kind of the point. And well, if you've read my other fiction, for example, Twidark, I like to do the chapter titles in a little bit special way and not just call them episode one, episode two, or anything like that.
I understand. It's always good to
For
have a little reference in your chapter titles. Yeah.
So, for example, in Twidark, all the chapter titles are actually books by H.P. Lovecraft.
Nice. You know how the internet loves its Lovecraftian references.
Yeah, well, who of us doesn't love tentacles?
All right, now we'll get back to talking about the story, but just for a second, let's talk about you. How did you come to write My Little Pony fanfiction?
Well, actually, I have to blame one specific author for that. He's called Quaker Jack. I actually noticed that he just got a long interview and feature on the Film Fiction site, and his story, Wild, Sweet and Cool, was actually the first fanfic I read, and after that I decided to start read more of them because it was so awesome.
Hmm.
And then, well, I just got an idea and wanted to try how good I'm at writing fics in foreign language, and I thought it might be a good way to improve my language skills. And well, here we are.
And I have to say, your English is very good.
Well, thank you, I guess.
I really couldn't even tell that it was someone from Finland that was writing the story as I was reading it.
Well, yeah, I don't actually sound too much like a Finnish talking English, so.
Alright, so you kind of quashed my next question with that previous one. I was going to ask, are there any particular stories that got you interested in writing it? But you said the one from Quaker Jack. What was the name of that one again?
Wild, Sweet, and Cool.
Okay.
And after that, I read the insert author here's My Little Alicorn, and well, after that, I've been hooked to fanfics. So those two are actually the ones that got me into fanfics.
All right, now, your name, Isseus. Where did you get that from?
Well, I used to go by the nickname Is No Good over the internet for years and years, and then I needed some change, and well, Isseus sounds a bit like a Roman or Greek name, and it just, clicked.
So it's one of those.
There's no bigger story behind it.
So I kind of figured it was like some kind of Finnish word, but no, made up name. Okay.
It has nothing to do with Finnish. The only thing is that sometimes my friends have given me the moniker of Isseus the Cruel because I've been known to be a bit of a dickhead and a sarcastic bastard over the years. So
I know the feeling. Trust me.
yeah, I sense a connection with you.
Yeah, you and I will get along fine, sir.
Yeah, I just pitied lightning, but hey.
All right. No. Back to the story.
Okay.
Why did you choose Sweetie Belle and Scooby?
Well, hold on now. Hold on. Before we get into that, why don't we talk a little bit about what the fic is about?
Probably a good idea. All right, Lightning.
So the basic premise behind the story is that, as the Cutie Crusaders are in the clubhouse, Apple Bloom walks in at the very beginning of the story, seemingly trying to hide from Applejack because she's gotten in trouble in one way or another. And, of course, the Cutie Crusader hideout being in Sweet Apple Acres is not the best place to hide out, and Applejack, of course, finds her. And as they're walking away, she starts talking about punishing Applejack, or punishing Apple Bloom. And it gets the other two, Sweetie Belle and Scootaloo, talking about it, and that's when Scootaloo says, well, yeah, I've never really been punished. My parents don't really care that much. If I do something wrong, they'll kind of just shrug it off. And
hate to interrupt you here, but actually I wrote a third fiction. It's called The Apple Family Way, and it's pretty much tied to this one. Well, not so much to these two characters, but it actually concerns Applejack and Apple Bloom talking about how they were raised and how Applejack was brought up with corporal punishment and how she intends to bring Apple Bloom up the same way and actually decides not to, and it's very emotional and stuff like that. So that's kind of the premise behind this story.
Very interesting. And one of the things I like about your story is, for once, somebody actually gave Scootaloo parents.
Yeah, actually, that was a really hard thing to do because I tried to write as close to canon as possible. Well, I know it sounds pretty weird because we're talking about a club fic here, but I hate to do OCs or original characters. I hate to change backgrounds too much. So one of the things I love about writing fan fiction is the challenge of writing in a specific set of rules and backgrounds.
All right, Lightning, you can carry on with your...
So, as they're talking about this, Sweetie Belle is saying that she's had kind of the same experience as Alpha Bloom being raised by Rarity, and um, she starts thinking, that Scootaloo is not necessarily lucky for having this, but instead it's kind of sad that her parents just
Don't-
kind of shrug her off.
Yeah, they don't care enough to actually punish her, or they're not around enough to. That's really the point.
Right. And I'm having a little bit of trouble remembering exactly what happens first.
Well, would you like me to remind you?
Yes, please.
Yeah, well, actually the point was that Scootaloo was the one to ask Sweetie Belle to hit her, to, just to try how it feels. That was the basic idea in the first chapter. And Sweetie Belle was, okay, let's do that. But she really got into it and gave Scootaloo a really, really, really hard spanking. And afterwards, they ended up lying on the floor with Scootaloo crying, and they both got pretty emotional. And Scootaloo actually told Sweetie Belle that her parents don't care enough to punish her or actually care whatever she does.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the basic idea. And Sweetie Belle actually gets really worried about her friend because she always looks like a really, I use the term Tom Coltish girl all the time, and going around riding on her scooter doing dangerous stuff, but she senses that inside Scootaloo might be actually quite fragile and afraid of her loneliness and stuff.
Mm-hmm. And in the next chapter, they get into a little bit more of the punishment, and I think it's whenever Scootaloo says she doesn't like, or she won't eat carrots, and then Sweetie Belle has an idea for a punishment, and she makes her eat carrots. I believe that's the next chapter, isn't it?
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, that's the next thing that happens. And like at first, she won't eat the carrots, and she goes through another punishment before she eats the carrots, though. And I believe that when they also use a switch as well.
Yeah, that was the first one, and there's actually also a bondage involved.
Right. Yeah.
What chapter did she get put in the corner?
That was the second one.
Okay, because
Yeah.
I have to applaud you on the corner scene, because as I was reading it, I was thinking, I remember the corner from when I was little, and this is exactly how I remember it.
Yeah. Well, I think everyone who's ever grown up remembers the corner time, so...
Exactly, it's the reason why I like your fate. It brings back these memories of punishment, well, some memories from punishment when you're a little kid, and you're like, I hated this, God, I hated this.
Mm-hmm. And I also tried to think about the psychological effects it has on kids, on what it causes them to think, what they feel, how they feel that they shouldn't move even an inch and stuff. Mm-hmm. I really tried to put myself into the mindset of the little kid or foal or what have you.
You did a very good job. All right, Lightning, you're going to say something?
Well, the corner scene was really, like you said, very psychological. It was, the fact that she was thinking, I can't hear anything. Is she still there? Is she, waiting for me to just move so that she can punish me more? And she kind of wants to look around, but she knows that she really shouldn't and can't. And so finally, Sweetie Belle ends up coming back in and takes her out of corner time. And that's when she says, well, let's get into the second part of your punishment.
And this is where things start to get rated M.
Right.
So, Sweetie Belle ties Scootaloo down to the table with, what is it? Is it like twine, or is it actual rope?
It's twine.
It's actually twine.
Okay, it's twine.
You know, I was thinking about the stuff you use to close mail packages or stuff like that.
All right.
Yeah.
You know, really thin, really sharp when you use it to bind something. Probably the worst possible thing to tie someone up with.
And then
and the
Sweetie
reason
goes out and gets a switch.
Yeah, but the reason behind her tying up Scootaloo, it wasn't to be part of the punishment. It was just because Scootaloo moved around so much. So it was just at first it was just a practical thing. I didn't want to bring the bondage and domination elements in too quickly in this story.
And I was really, really interested that you added something about her wings. Scootaloo wanted to tie up her wings, and Scootaloo was really against that idea. She didn't want her wings to be tied down.
Yeah, that was the legendary wing boner thing.
Yeah.
Because I was just thinking that maybe if it's involuntary, then it might be very painful or even dangerous if the wings are tied up.
That's a good point. I don't really see brought up in a lot of stories.
Well, I think too much. That's probably become apparent by this point.
I think you think just the right amount, so it's fine.
Okay.
All right. So the next scene is when Sweetie goes out and gets a switch. Now, as a kid, I grew up in a very corporal punishment environment, and my dad, he made me. I used to have to go out and cut my own switches. That scene, I'm terrified of switches, and that scene made me shiver like nothing else.
Yeah, actually, in the third part, well, the story is actually cut into three stories. In the third part, Scootaloo actually has to go get her own switch. Right. But in the second one, I made Sweetie Belle get it because she wanted to get one that was just right. And
I still hate switches. So.
yeah, I can hear that you're reminiscing there and sweating cold beads of sweat and. Slowly descending into panic about your childhood.
Yes, it's okay. Good. Lightning, carry on before I slip into madness.
So, that's when... So Sweetie Belle starts to use the switch, and after a little while of doing that is when she says, okay, well, let's have you eat carrots now. And even through all that, Scootaloo still refuses to eat the carrots, and she doesn't say why at first. And that's when Sweetie Belle kind of
she goes overboard.
She gets really angry and goes overboard and just continues to hit Scootaloo over and over and over again with the switch. And
yeah, because in the series, Sweetie Belle has always shown the least, self-constraint. She's always been the one to go overboard with things, so I just wanted to bring it into the fiction too.
And finally, Scootaloo says, fine, I'll tell you, because she just wants Sweetie Belle to stop. And mentions her even younger foalhood, where she will, at school, would eat carrots, but her other classmates would tease her about it because she's orange and the carrots are orange, and so they say, oh, look, it's Scootaloo's eating herself, and it just traumatized her so much that she can't even eat carrots anymore.
Well, I've heard people getting traumatized for far less, so...
It's a very interesting point to bring up where nobody actually... This is the one fan fiction I've read where nobody made fun of her for being a flightless chicken, but instead made fun of her for being a carrot.
Well, actually, there's a little mention about being a dodo, but that was more of a joke.
Like, hey, I told you not to say that anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was definitely not cool.
And I think this is the one part in the story, I think this is where it happens, that Sweetie Belle says, well, I'm sorry about that, and says, I really feel bad about you not having a family. Can I be your big sister? And it's really cool that, you know, you get these two friends that are close enough that they can act like they're related to one another. And Sweetie Belle cares enough for Scootaloo to say, I want to be your big sister, I want to take care of you. Make you,
Yeah,
a better pony, is I think how they say it in the story.
yeah. Actually, it was because Scootaloo was acting so selfishly, and Sweetie Belle wanted her to notice that she's actually not being a very nice person, and actually said that Scootaloo, hey, you're actually being a bad pony, and Scootaloo is like, what the hey? I'm bad. What the heck is this? I didn't even know. And then Sweetie Belle says that, hey, you kind of need someone to tell you how to act, and if you'd like, I can be your big sister. That's kind of the backdropping.
And I think at that point in time, she does actually eat some of her carrots, though.
Yeah, it's actually Scootaloo who asks for Sweetie Belle to give her those carrots.
And while I think it is sweet that, you know, Sweetie Belle can sit there and go, oh yeah, I'll be your big sister. Well, on a different note, it's also kind of sad that she has to rely on her friends for that kind of guidance.
Yeah, it is, and well, I didn't go all the way with the total ramifications about Scootaloo's loneliness and stuff, but there are some very very hurtful things that happen in the same chapter. I think Lightning is going to talk about them a bit later.
Well, it does bring up a good point though, where kids today are more likely to be left at home by their parents, you know, alone, and they're kind of like missing out on that needed guidance from them.
Yeah, but the one part about that story that was actually, it was really hard for me to write because after Scootaloo gets untied and Sweetie actually noticed that the twines have actually broken her skin and her butt is all black and blue and she's all, you know, teary-eyed and she actually had rope burn on her sides and stuff, and asked that Scootaloo, hey, actually, are you going to be all right? You're actually really badly hurt. And Scootaloo says that when she goes home and there's no one there, and she has to, you know, warm up a dinner and wait for her mom maybe to come. Maybe she'll be late, so she'll actually be asleep by that time. And Scootaloo actually says that when she remembers the things that she's gotten hurt because, you know, because of her friends, because of crusading, she doesn't feel so lonely anymore. So that was actually one of the hardest things in the story.
Yeah, you know, like I said, I think it really speaks to today's culture where kids are left alone a lot more, and they're more likely to do outlandish or maybe more daredevilish stuff to try to get more attention from somebody.
Yeah, and media spamming all this jackass stuff, and Similo doesn't really help, but...
No, it doesn't, and you know, like, while the fic is primarily a clock fic, I think, well, it's not primarily one, I think it's very psychological in nature, and that's the reason I like it, because I'm not a huge fan of Polcon, but if it has a great undertone like this story does, I will read it.
Yeah, well, this is one of the funny things about the fiction. I was going to write it as one-off. It was not supposed to be longer than one chapter, and I was going to just write the first chapter. That's why it's even just called something different from the other chapters. But in the end, I thought that there are a lot of issues that I could really bring up, talk, and maybe go deeper in the whole psychological aspect of the punishment and discipline and family and stuff. So that's why I actually expanded on the idea.
Lightning can carry on with the synopsis.
So we talked a little bit about the fact that she had twine being that they used the twine, it had cut into her skin. And after that, they went home. And I can't remember if it was the next day or a couple of days later that the next part happened at the beach.
I think that was the next part.
Yeah, it was a third story.
Right. And was that just a couple of days later, or was it the next day, or?
It was a undetermined amount of days later.
Okay, so just sometime in the future, they ended up going to the beach. They had made lemonade.
That was actually one of my main failures in the story. I forgot that there are actually no beaches near the Ponyville.
Yeah, I think somehow if they wanted to put it into the show, they could definitely put a beach somewhere near Ponyville, if they really wanted to. But
yeah, or maybe it was somewhere around the rivers or something. But yeah, that's one of the parts that really got me afterwards.
Yeah, still a good story nonetheless.
right.
Yeah, but hey, I'm a perfectionist when I write.
So they go to the beach and they make a lemonade, and they say, "Okay, let's split this up. I'll work some while you go swim and play or whatever, and then we'll switch off a couple times and do that."
So they take turns selling the lemonade and going swimming and stuff.
Right. And during Scootaloo's turn, she kind of is overbearing on the customers, kind of, and ends up scaring most of them away, rather than actually selling the lemonade. And Sweetie Belle actually sees this and starts to talk to her about, you shouldn't push the lemonade on them, but instead just suggest it and say that they should try it. And I think at that point in time, it's Rainbow Dash and Applejack that walk up.
Yeah.
And I think at this point in time, Apple Bloom is still grounded.
No, she's sick at this point.
She's sick, right? Okay, so she's sick at this point in time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it doesn't matter. The only reason she was away was so she wouldn't get involved in this story.
Right. Yeah. It was a plot device, but I just wanted to mention that she's still not with them.
Yeah.
And now Rainbow Dash walks up and starts drinking some lemonade, and talking to Scootaloo a little bit, and finally, was it Sweetie Belle or Scootaloo that told Rainbow Dash that it cost money?
It was Sweetie Belle, because Scootaloo was doing in Rapture that her her hero was there.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, Rainbow Dash was taking advantage of her.
And Rainbow Dash actually says that, yay, this lemonade is really good. I think I've at least drunk 5 glasses or something. And Sweetie just got in and said, hey, that'll be 5 bits then.
Right. And it's funny because at this point in time, Rainbow Dash doesn't have any money on her. And I think Scootaloo was talking to Sweetie Belle saying, maybe we can just let it go. Maybe we don't really need it. It's just 5 bits. And Sweetie Belle is determined to get it, and eventually it's Applejack that ends up paying for it. Like Rainbow Dash asked Applejack to pay for the lemonade. And after Rainbow Dash and Applejack walk away, Sweetie Belle turns to Scootaloo and says, what's up? Why did you want to have them not pay for it? And she says, well, it's just 5 bits, I mean. And that's when they get into the talk about, Scootaloo, when she goes home, a lot of times her parents will leave money for her because there won't be anyone there and she has to go out and buy her food and then make it. And she'll get like 20 bits a day. And Sweetie Belle is outraged by this because she says that she'll go through a whole week and do chores and work at the boutique, and she'll get 5 bits for the entire week of work. And that's why she was so determined to get this money, because it was a lot to her, but to Scootaloo is just like, it's just 5 bits. And that was the whole reason for the 3rd round of punishments. Sweetie Belle was saying, you need to learn that there's a value to money, and that you can't just get something for doing nothing.
And
Yeah,
if I'm right, the third round of the punishment is actually, well, I get the final one of the story.
Right.
yeah. And actually, there are some. There are more issues than just the value of money. I just didn't want to bring them up quite yet, but it's actually because Scudlu's actions are so selfish and self-centered. That's more the point why Sweetie gets so upset.
Right. Yeah, that's underlying throughout pretty much the entire thing. Is that most of what Scootaloo does is selfish. And there's just different examples of that throughout the story. But anyway,
This final chapter is great because, of course, this is where, excuse my pun here, but this is where the story comes to a climax.
Teehee.
Yeah. And anyways, it's kind of where like all the punishments mount up, and finally, you get a lot of just pure BDSM stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
and one other thing I need to mention is that as they were at the beach, Scootaloo was drinking lemonade while she was working the stand as well.
Mm-hmm.
So they end up leaving the beach and they go back to the clubhouse.
Because it started raining.
Right.
Yeah, I know when you say it like that, it sounds really convoluted.
No, it's fine. I mean, I understand. It makes sense because the weather can be so sudden in Ponyville because the Pegasi and the clouds.
Well, actually, Rainbow Dash told them that they might want to pack up because there's a scheduled rainstorm coming in the afternoon. So.
Oh yeah.
I tried to actually explain it, but.
Right. Yeah.
It just slipped my mind, don't it?
But so yeah, they get back to the clubhouse and Lightning.
Well, okay. The right when they get back to the clubhouse is a little bit fuzzy for me. Because I was reading this really late at night. Do you want to remind me what happens right when they get back to the clubhouse?
Well, first of all, maybe you should go read the story again, and I'll take over from here. Well, the idea here is that Sweetie Belle actually wants to pick up a few things from the boutique, and they go to the clubhouse. And it turns out that Sweetie Belle has actually been preparing for this new session and designed a whole set of punishments for Scootaloo. And Scootaloo is at first okay with the stuff, but then they start going into a more awkward direction all the time, and finally Scootaloo starts begging for Sweetie to let her go. And there's by that point Scootaloo is tied up and can't really get away, but Sweetie Belle is like, no, you won't get out. This is a punishment and you're gonna take it. And it turns out Sweetie Belle has been turned on all this time about the beatings and the domination and all of that stuff, and at the same time Scootaloo has been turned on by the pain and the submission parts. So this can only end up in two foals having very, very, very awkward sex together, but there's a lot more to it than that. But in the end, Scootaloo ends up wetting herself because she was made to drink a lot of the lemonade that they had left over, and she is really upset about that. And Sweetie Belle says to her that it was an accident, it doesn't matter and stuff, but after Scootaloo is let go, she actually finds out that Sweetie Belle had a book about this kind of stuff, about BDSM and stuff, and finds out that actually everything that's happened that day was planned, even her wetting herself. And Scootaloo goes off her rocker and gets really angry. She punches Sweetie Belle, goes out, they have a little tussle in the mud, and she leaves.
Now, this is where the story was originally supposed to end here.
Yeah, because, in my mind the scene kind of felt different. And well, a few of my readers and writer/acquaintances pointed out to me that this story really needs a better ending, and I should write a short epilogue. That's
I read that those last chapters, supposed last chapter, and I'm like, this feels unfulfilled.
yeah, but that was kind of the point, because I wanted it to feel sad and empty, and I wanted to, make the reader feel like there's nothing in the future, that this is it. Like how Sweetie Belle is feeling at that moment. She is lying there all alone in the rain. Her best friend just, beat the crap out of her, and, she's just totally desperate, and she sees nothing in the future, and that's kind of what I was going for, but, after several friendly people pointed it out to me, it really sucked as an ending, so I wrote an epilogue.
Now, the epilogue, it's still, I think what people wanted is they wanted more from Scootaloo. They wanted them to talk it out and not necessarily forgive everything, but get some closure with that. Because it seemed like Scootaloo was angry at the time, but it's something that you can get over in a couple of days.
Well, not a couple days. It'll take a while.
Yeah, but then we come to the title of the story, which is called Dominant Ideal. The dominant ideal in this story was trust. Because you cannot be a friend without trust. You cannot do stuff like BDSM, where you tie each other up and beat each other and have sex afterwards. You really can't do stuff like that. And Sweetie Belle broke Scootaloo's trust in the third story. And Scootaloo is really, really deeply hurt about that. And even though they kind of make up in the epilogue, it's not a happy ending as such. It's like, we can hang out and be friends and stuff, but let's see what happens.
It's a bittersweet ending.
Yeah.
But the big thing about it is through the whole story, you really got into your reader's mind with a lot of stuff. Like you help them connect with the character so much, and then you have this thing at the end that makes them feel hopeless. It makes them, like you said, Sweetie Belle felt like hopeless. But the thing about people is we're very hopeful beings. We like to have some form of hope, and then with the actual epilogue you did and actually gave some hope to it, I think it was a much better ending, just in my opinion, because it kind of like kept with the theme of connecting with the reader.
Well, I guess that's true also. But it's really hard to talk about this story as just a synopsis, because you have to leave so much of the story out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've hardly even touched about the club aspect of the whole story, and I for one actually think it's almost an extra in this story.
Well, if you want to go read the full version of Isseus' story, we'll have the link in the description of the video, of course. You can read it, leave a comment, give a thumbs up, hit favorite, hit like, hit watch. He's a great author. You won't be disappointed, I promise.
Yay. And also, give me all your critiques that you want, because I can take it. And I really want to improve as a writer, and I can't do that if everyone just sends me, "Yay, you rock! Yay, yay!" messages. So,
as Befallen was trying to talk about before the synopsis, why was it Sweetie Belle and Scootaloo?
Are they your favorite of the CMC, or what?
Well, actually, I wrote the story Apple Family Way, that was dealing with Apple Bloom. And when I was thinking about the BDSM aspect and writing Klopfic, I think that all the pairings with the grown-up ponies, they're really boring, and they're done they've been done so many times. I wanted to write something very different, and that's why I picked up Sweetie Belle and Scootaloo, because I, of course, adore the CMC because they're so darn cute, but I also know that kids can have really deep thoughts. They can they can really, feel hurt inside and not know what to do about it. So I wanted to bring that aspect into the story as well.
It definitely carried over. You did a good job with that.
And about CMC, it has never been stated in the story how old they actually are, but in my mind, I've always thought that they're equal to, well, let's say 10-year-old kids. And that was the perspective I was using.
That makes perfect sense to me, because even with human children, it's a lot like around that age they're trying to figure out what they want to do with their life and who they really are. So that's a big deal with them, and that's exactly what the CMC does. I think 10 is actually a pretty good age for that.
Yeah, I agree, and that would also be equal to what they're taught in school and what they do and how they play around and stuff. So. And this might sound a bit worrying, but I actually work quite a lot with kids, so
that's not worrying. Yeah, I mean, you obviously know the psychology of it, and obviously helped in the story.
And I actually wrote a long blog post about, mostly just declaring that even if you write about something or think about something, it is not the same as doing something nasty. So I actually have a totally clear conscience about writing club fics about two technical orpholes having sex and beating each other senseless.
That message right there, just because you write or say something does not mean you believe in it. I think a lot of the Brony community should listen to that and take that message in right now, Purple Tinker, and learn that if somebody says something, it doesn't mean that they actually think it or do it, okay? Sorry, just need to get that out.
Yeah, I heard about that thing, and I still haven't taken a side, and I don't think I will.
Anyways, back to the matter at hand. A lot of people in stories, they have Scootaloo be an orphan, and or they like to hurt her out of pure malice, like they have ponies abuse her for no reason. But in your story, you let her have parents. Granted, they're not very caring, and you have her be hurt out of what seems to be generosity, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
So, what made you decide to upset that status quo?
Well, I hate the stereotype of Scootaloo being the one-dimensional Tom Cultis orphan chicken that is the butt of all the jokes and always the receiving end of all the abuse and the Scootaboo, and I hate that trope. So I wanted to give her more personality without conflicting with the canon.
Are you planning more stories like this, or maybe even perhaps a sequel to it?
Well, I've actually had a few thoughts, and I made a post about it on Film Fiction too, about writing another fic about what might happen if Sweetie Belle and Apple Bloom got into a similar situation, but that was only a spur of the moment thing. My next fic will be a sequel to Twidark, and I've been planning that for a while, and other than that, I don't really have any plans.
All right.
I mean, even this story, it's a bit over 30,000 words, and I wrote it in a little under a week. So I'd call it mostly a spontaneous story. It was not really so well planned out before, but it just started coming. The story just started coming, and I had to get it up. So.
All right. So Lightning. On a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give this story?
For this story, because of the basic psychology behind it and the idea of the story, I'm going to give it an 8. Mm-hmm. Simply because the only part I didn't like about it was that I'm more of a happy endings type of guy, but I understand the need for it to be the way it is, so I enjoy the story enough to give it an 8 out of 10.
Now, I'm going to qualify my review. While I don't usually read full con or clot fics, I will have to say that I think this story is a must-read. Not because it's BDSM, not because it's Volcon, but because of the content, because of how well it's written, and because the author, Isseus, he sits down and he really delves into the psychology of children that I think most, if not all, of the readers can really identify with. And by the end of the story, you'll be sitting there and you'll actually be thinking, oh my God, I remember this, and you'll connect very well with Scootaloo and her experiences of pain or getting punished. And it's a very, very good story in that aspect. And even though we call it a clop fic, it doesn't actually have a lot of clop in it. It's more just pure BDSM than it is actually clop.
It was the very last part of the third story where it really got into that.
And so, okay,
and one of the points I was trying to make throughout the story is that they mess almost all the things up that they try. I mean, if someone who is at all into BDSM read this story, they would read it as a horror story of how not to do things. I mean, there are some principles in BDSM that you should really go with, and these little foals don't do any of them.
So would you call this the 50 Shades of Grey of the pony community?
Well, I've never read 50 Shades of Grey. Yeah, poor me. And actually, I even heard of the whole book after I wrote this, and I was like, damn. Do they now think that this is a copy of that or something? But
well, let's just
no,
say 50 Shades of Grey is a very poor representation of the BDSM community.
Oh, well, I only know it's a book that's been selling like 1 million copies over the world, and well, millions of copies, and it's about BDSM.
Anyways,
and that's all I know about it.
If I had to review it, I would probably be... It's not because you're here, Isseus, it's because this is one of the greatest... This is one of, like, the most greatest psychological tales I've ever read. I have to give it a 9.5, which is probably one of the highest reviews I've ever given, actually.
Oh, stop it. You're making me blush. Oh, sorry. Do continue. Praise me more.
Well,
I can take
Isseus, we thank you for your time.
You're welcome, and it was nice to be on your show.
We'll see you next week on Fanatic Fiction, where we will be reviewing a series of one-shots picked by the cast. I am Befallen Tragedy, and I will see you later. Alright, I'm going to stop recording.